Thanks, Joe. This is the Economic Development Committee of Community Board 3, our March meeting, and we're going to get things kicked off with approval of last month's minutes. I'm going to run through roll call. Anisha Stephen will be back in a bit. Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis. Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Herman Hewitt.
Right off, I'm good.
I'm good. I'm going to be here for a little while.
Yes.
Thank you, Herman. Joseph Kearns.
Yes.
David Lilly.
Yes.
Alexandra Militano. No Alex yet. Richard Robiak is.
Yes.
Yeah. Rodney Washington. And Andrew Comey.
Yes.
Megan, can I interrupt just a second?
Sure.
Did you get Anisha's note that she's not feeling well?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Okay,
it's okay, I'm just gonna start the meeting off. She asked me to.
okay. I wanted to make sure you got that.
Thanks. So our, sorry. Our first item on the agenda is the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce presentation on Small Business Resource Network. We have Justin and Sean here from the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Yep. Hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for coming out, or
Thank you for having us.
in, as we say.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, so do you guys want to get started and let us know what this is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you guys are sharing this PowerPoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm like, no, Sean and Justin aren't. Okay, just checking. Okay, so I'm Natalie Mandel. I'm the Director of Business Recovery for the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'll wait for the slideshow to begin. But very quickly, we're here to present about the New York City Small Business Resource Network. This is a citywide initiative that all 5 borough chambers of commerce are working on together to help small businesses survive the COVID-19 crisis. It's completely free to sign up. I'm going to let Sean and Justin take over and present. They are your business recovery specialists that cover your community board.
Cool. And can everyone see the document? Sorry, before I not to cut you guys off. Okay.
No, totally fine.
Thanks, Natalie.
Okay, great. Thank you, Natalie. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. As Natalie mentioned, my name is Sean Martin, and I'm a small business support specialist for the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. I'll let Justin, my colleague, introduce himself as well.
Hi guys, my name is Justin Flamiano. I'm also a small business support specialist that cover a part of your area.
Yes, so as Justin mentioned, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but essentially we've divided Manhattan into a few different zones. And so Justin covers most of Community Board 3. I will be working a little bit with the eastern part of the Lower East Side, but regardless, yeah, we want to tell you about the NYC Small Business Resource Network. So you can go to the next slide. So the NYC Small Business Resource Network was created because of the pandemic, and it's essentially us at the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. We're working with the chambers of commerce in each borough and our community partners. It's a unique private-public partnership that provides local businesses with free personalized guidance for anything that they may need to survive the pandemic. So we have support from universities, philanthropies, and expert volunteers. We're also working with corporate, financial, and professional services sectors. Next slide. So this is an example of some of our partners that we were working with, which include, like I mentioned, the Chambers of Commerce. This is happening in every borough. The Partnership Fund for New York City, EDC, and we're working a lot with small business services for the city. So yeah, we're here. There are 5 of us, plus we have a technical specialist, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But essentially we're here to connect with local business owners throughout Manhattan specifically, and connect them with any kind of resource they may need. Maybe it's a grant or loan, or PPP loan information. Maybe it's free marketing expertise. Again, like I mentioned, technology support, pro bono legal counsel, you name it. We're just trying to basically support as many small businesses as possible during this very volatile and challenging time. One example of, so most of the resources that we are able to connect small business owners with are not within the Small Business Resource Network. They're either offered by some of our partners, or we have points of contact for each resource that we may refer. But most of the time, we're serving as the connectors to these resources. But sometimes we have the opportunity to also offer our own resources. This is an example. We had a $500 credit we were offering to small business owners if they were to apply for the creation of a website, and they've been able to meet with experts for free and some of our technical specialists to create that website, and that was really successful. And we're hoping in the future we anticipate to offer some more opportunities like this. So, the big question, who can apply? It's pretty simple. If you have 100 employees or less and you're located in New York City, you're eligible to apply. Of course, every business is different, and there's certain eligibility requirements for the specific resources. But for the most part, if you meet these 2 criteria, definitely please sign up if you're looking for some free resources, and we'd be happy to connect.
So small business owners can sign up with us either in person during our door-to-doors or online. So for those seeing us online or interfacing with us online, you can sign up by submitting your business profile on our website. It's shown on the slide. You can type in smallbiz.nyc and click enter, and it'll lead you to the website. Once you fill in your profile, you'll be assigned with a small business support specialist through your local Chamber of Commerce, which is us. For the people part of Community Board 3, it's either me or Sean, depending on the zip code. And you're going to be working with our specialists to assess your business needs. So once you get assigned, we'll contact you directly, and we'll schedule the best time to call you. And when we do call you, we're going to discuss your business needs and how everything's been going with you, and find out how you are. And then you get your personalized guidance and access resources for your business, depending on what your needs are. So in the next slide, we'll show you how the website looks like. You can sign up today at smallbiz.nyc. So this is how the website looks like. We offer the website in 8 different languages: Filipino, Chinese, Greek, Haitian Creole, Korean, Russian, Spanish. So we're trying to be as diverse as possible and accessible as possible to different languages of different people speaking different primary languages. So we find a lot of, in my experience, I find a lot of Chinese primary, Cantonese, or Mandarin speakers who can only speak those languages, and signing up on the website with those languages definitely help them a lot. The next slide, please. So Manhattan is covered by 5 different business support specialists and 1 technical support specialist. So as we said before, me and Sean cover your area, and I'll show you the next slide who covers which area in Manhattan. So Francesca in the next slide covers Upper Manhattan to East Harlem. In the next slide, it's Alejandro who covers, Chris covers East Midtown to Upper East Side. Alejandro covers up the Upper West Side. And Sean covers the Lower East Side part of Community Board 3 and East Midtown all the way down to West Village. And then there's me. So I cover the upper part of Community Board 3, Alphabet City, East Village, all the way to 20th Street, and all the way down to Fidei. And Star, in the next slide, is our tech support specialist. Star actually covers 3 boroughs, Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island. So you can have free consultation and guidance on technology, websites, databases, your user design experience matters with Star. So if you have those kinds of issues and you contact us, we end up referring you to Star, and Star will help you out. I've had a few businesses in Soho talk to Star. So right now I have an Ethiopian restaurant owner who's been working with Star to design his website. So Star has been working with him. He's been sending pictures to Star, and Star has also been working with another specialist to handle the website development part. So for those who need Star, we have tech office hours every Wednesday this month to schedule a one-on-one consultation with him. You can sign up at you can use the QR code or at the link at the bottom. So you can we connect to small business owners in many different ways. So we can either interface with them online. So we've been marketing the SBRN through social media, Facebook and Instagram. We've had really good response on Instagram and Facebook. A lot of small business owners and new business owners in Upper Manhattan have signed up. So Francesca has a lot of cases at the moment. We have been doing our door-to-doors. So we have these flyers on the right, as you can see, that we hand out. They're nice and glossy and cute. So if you want a copy, we can send you some and drop off some. We've also been speaking to a lot of gatekeepers, bids, associations. We're talking to Uvima at the moment. And we've been trying to get into newsletters. They've been gracious enough to feature us in newsletters to let small business owners who don't normally spend time on social media know that we exist to help them out. So we also co-host other SBRN info sessions for business owners. We're meeting new business owners associations or small business owners who join committees like this and then end up having their own coalitions. So we had a talk with Uvima last week, and then a business owner spoke to us and said they have an even smaller association that they'd want to feature us in. So we're constantly, finding people to reach out to. So in the next slide, we also provide free face coverings from the chamber. So you can sign up for the SBRN and then ask your specialist for free masks. We provide 20 masks per employee. So you can schedule a pickup by email, helpdesk@manhattancc.org, or when you sign up with your specialist, you can talk to them and ask them for PPE. So thank you so much. In the next slide, you'll see all of the contact information that's for every specialist. So Sean and my contact information is there, as well as the website. So if you have any questions, do let us know. You can contact helpdesk@manhattancc.org or go to the website and sign up.
Thank you, Justin and Sean. Yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if anyone has any questions. We're always available. I can also put this, I don't know if you want us to put our emails in the chat, or I'll share the website as well.
Sure, and I'm just going to take some, if you guys are okay sticking around for a few questions now.
Of course.
Yeah, Susan, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, thank you. So this is really great to hear. I want to, so I'm the district manager, and I want to lobby you to have one person per community board or two, but to line it up with community boards because it makes life a lot easier. And I'll say when Nancy was the head of the chamber, we worked really closely with her all the time. And I feel like the community board has lost that, and we need it now more than ever. I certainly would like flyers to hand out. I would like to know where you've done your door-to-door and where not, what, who you're working with, what the partners are. So we can do that all offline later. But I guess one of the things we need is really one person to work with, whoever you decide that should be for the board.
Absolutely. we can get you that one dedicated specialist that you can always ask questions to.
Okay, thank you. This is really great. And it's just so productive to be able to work with you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say that I actually work at Facebook on the business side. And so I don't know if you're working with anyone at Facebook to help promote this or just kind of get resources from Facebook. But I'm happy to kind of, maybe Natalie, I'm happy to kind of just send you a note and just see if there's a way to partner on this and help extend the reach of the program.
Totally. That would be greatly appreciated. We'd also love to pick your brain on, or maybe you don't know, but we try to advertise on social, but like maybe there's a better way to like use tags or get the most reach out of our posts.
Yeah, I'll send you a note.
Thank you.
When did you guys go live? With this?
September 30th. So it's the program's been, I think we're in our 4th or 5th month.
And what's been the majority of the services that people are looking for?
Great question. Financing is always the most popular, most requested, loans, grants. Justin, Sean, do you guys want to chip in?
Yeah,
Sure,
definitely.
Oh, you go, Justin.
you can-
and I'll
you can-
go.
Okay. Sorry. So financing, definitely. A lot of people are looking for grants. They're not always there, but when they're there, we definitely tell everybody about them. So also low interest loans and financial planning services. A lot of people are deep in debt. So they're looking for ways to restructure and just plan their lives. And then probably second most important is legal services, because storefronts have leases. Leases mean problems with landlords, and landlords mean negotiations, and people need help with negotiating. So we do have legal services, that free pro bono legal services. We connect them to those.
Have you found that your team is big enough to handle all the requests at this stage?
Yes. We have found, yeah, I mean, we can't always fulfill every single need, but when if there are needs that we aren't meeting, we bring that to, we try to either fundraise, or we'll tell EDC or the partnership and see what they can do. And we try to take all our stakeholders and,
Right.
look
That's where the
into like,
partnerships come in handy.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
The other thing I wanted to quick add, kind of jumping off of Justin, that we've seen as a need is marketing. I think as we have participated in this kind of completely virtual world, I know that a lot of businesses that are really rely on foot traffic have had a really tough time, especially if they don't have a very strong online presence. So we have some great resources that range from one-on-one assistance, like one-time sessions to year-long programs to assist business owners looking to increase their marketing capacity. And the other thing that I think we should have added in this presentation that I want to point out is beyond having the technical specialist, we also have within the network a restaurant specialist. She works out of Brooklyn, but she covers all the boroughs, and she does a really great job helping restaurants and being extremely fluent in the kind of most up-to-date guidelines for the city. One particular example is I was in Community Board 3 working with a restaurant owner who, and this has happened unfortunately more times than one, is that there'll be some sort of guideline with the DOT or Department of Buildings in this case, trying to set up the outdoor dining or the kind of those kind of situations. So she can help guide restaurant owners with that. And she was successfully able to help someone within the Community Board 3 figure out their situation with their dining and their kind of restaurant issues.
Great, thanks. Joe, did you have another question?
No, I was just going to say on the marketing side, maybe again, I'll follow up with you guys, but I'd love to think with you about how we as Facebook could kind of help there. Either best practices or something like that. I'm sure to your point of like, as people shift from storefronts to online, it's definitely something where we're focused on kind of helping the community. So I'd love to follow up there.
Great. We would love that too.
Susan? Oh, Susan, unmute.
Okay, I was talking away. You brought up, about the guidelines. I'm going to say that's universally true because of the way the programs have been implemented. Nobody knows. There's no clear guidelines, period. And I just want to mention that in a resolution that for open restaurants that we voted on last month, we're really lobbying for those to be made more clear and to have jurisdiction and enforcement made clear. So I hope the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sure you are, asking for the same thing. Some of your, like the pro bono legal assistance is duplicated by the city and some other groups. And I'm wondering how you coordinate so that, you don't have people waiting in line for you when they might have, somebody available and that kind of thing.
Great question. So we play the role of connector. So those city services are one of the resources in our network that we can connect you to. Sean and Justin, for example, provide one-on-one assistance. So we can help you if you're interested in accessing one of those city resources. Sean and Justin will work with you hands-on, be a person who can actually see you face to face and answer your questions. And if you're not getting what you want out of that resource, we'll find you another resource, or maybe we have a connection to that resource and can see what we can do.
Okay, but it's basically the same resources.
Existing resources are in our clearinghouse, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions? All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming out and taking the time. I think it's an absolutely great resource for small businesses to have during this time. And I love that it's offered in multiple different languages and that you guys are outreaching, and maybe you could connect a little bit more with Susan about outreach specifically in CB3.
Great, thanks again
Great.
for having us.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on. The next agenda item.
I think it's the Keith Powers.
Yep, we've got from Councilmember Powers' office, Sarah Newman. Are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Hi,
Hey,
everyone.
how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sarah's going to present on Councilmember Powers' plan called the it's Open for Business plan, correct?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Sarah Newman. I am the legislative director for Councilmember Keith Powers, who is just north of you all. So it's my first time at CB3, despite being at several other community board meetings. So always happy to try a new one. And I know that, when Susan had reached out to Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, she was hoping to, get some updates on some of the policy efforts on the council side. So back in July of 2020, we worked with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce and with other stakeholders to put out a report that we called Open for Business. This was a blueprint for small business recovery, highlighting some key ideas, primarily on the city level, but also on the state and federal level, that we thought were important to focus on as we move through the pandemic and towards reopening and recovery for small businesses. So I'm just going to highlight a few areas that we focused on in the report and provide a few updates on those fronts. But after the meeting, happy to share a link to the report just if anyone wants to take a fuller look. So since we published the report, we've made some good progress on several of our recommendations. And in some other areas, we definitely still have some work and some pushing to do. So one of the key recommendations in our report, which we've already talked about a little bit here, was to extend outdoor dining, which at that point was only slated to run through the late summer and early fall of 2020. So this was a success for us. The council did vote to make outdoor dining permanent and year-round. And I think, as Susan pointed out, there's a lot of work to be done on just the regulatory end in terms of the rules that are coming out, from the various city agencies involved, particularly as the change, as things change with the pandemic, and just as conditions continue to change. So, most recently, DOT has been working with FDNY and DSNY to create some winter specific regulations having to do with heating, having to do with rules around snow removal and tents. And, we're certainly expecting that the various city agencies involved are going to need to continue to take an active role in, creating regulations as conditions change, as more folks start to go back to work, as the streets get busier, as the seasons change. So we think it's going to be a pretty dynamic process. And we're certainly supportive of making those guidelines clear and explicit. And that was something that we were hearing about a lot in the summer last year from restaurants in particular, that the constant changing of the rules was a real challenge for them. So, overall, we've been really happy with the benefit that the outdoor dining program has provided for both the businesses and just for everyday New Yorkers who enjoy patronizing the businesses and enjoy just having, revitalized streets, particularly after, several months of such quiet in the neighborhood. So that's one of the key recommendations that we had made that has, thankfully been a success. Another big area that we were focused on, in our report was direct financial assistance. And this is something that has, involved a fair amount of work on the federal government side. So, since the report came out in July 2020, there have been a few changes on the federal level. The main one is that the Paycheck Protection Program, which provides loans to allow businesses to, keep their workers employed and cover key costs, has been extended. And my understanding is that the reapplication process is in process right now. So the Small Business Administration on the federal level set a specific time to prioritize businesses with fewer than 20 employees and sole proprietors. So starting on Wednesday, February 24th, so I believe that was last week, and running through next Tuesday, those businesses are eligible to apply. So that process is in the works right now. And there have also been, since President Biden took office, some, I think, additional changes to the program to make it more accessible and more equitable. Another federal program that we focused on in the report and that Councilmember Powers was very active in pushing for was the Save Our Stages Act, which was passed as part of the stimulus package in December of last year. And essentially what that bill did was to create the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant Program. And this is a grant program that focuses specifically on independent music and entertainment venues, theaters, similar cultural institutions. And these types of businesses are in a unique position because they were among the first to close and they will be among the last to reopen. They're businesses where, they rely on crowds that are packed tightly together inside, and they operate on really small margins. So for a lot of these businesses, it's not financially feasible to reopen until they can essentially reopen at 100% capacity. So there was an announcement today, I think, by the governor that businesses like that, I think, will be able to start to reopen at limited capacity. The challenge is that for a lot of those businesses, they still won't be able to do that just because the costs of keeping it open are going to be significantly larger than the revenues that they'll be bringing in until they can have, larger capacity. So with that in mind, the federal government created this program targeted specifically towards these businesses and providing grants to them. So right now, the Small Business Administration is in the process of getting that up and running. So they've had to create, like from scratch what that program is going to look like. And I believe that the applications are supposed to be open soon. On the city level, both offices like ours, but also city agencies like the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment have been working pretty closely with the small businesses in the, independent music and entertainment venue community to provide resources and guidance around that process, once applications are, going to be open, just providing general resources. So that's been a big success, on the federal level. On the city level, it's been more challenging to provide additional direct assistance in the form of grants and loans. Initially, at the beginning of the pandemic, as you probably know, the city was able to provide some grants and loans, but the city budget has been a big constraint in that area in a way where the federal government is much less constrained, in how they can spend their money. So one area where the city has been successful, and I think, folks mentioned this a few minutes ago, was the commercial lease assistance program, which the council passed a few months back last year. And this is operated by Small Business Services, and it provides free legal services for small business tenants dealing with lease issues. So this is one of the resources that the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, it sounds like, refers folks to. And so the focus there is on providing pro bono legal assistance before things get to the point of litigation. So it's, not in the context of court, but in the context of providing legal assistance to try to help folks negotiate and, manage those challenging lease situations, as they're having trouble paying their rent. Another thing that bill did that was really important was require SBS to offer just general assistance with understanding and applying for COVID-related funding programs. And that is a requirement that is in effect for the duration of the pandemic state of emergency and for several months afterwards. So that's another role that, the city's Small Business Services Agency has taken on, is serving as a resource to, help answer questions about and navigate those programs. Additionally, there were, some other kind of smaller protections that we highlighted in the report that the council has been able to make some progress on. So last year, the council, earlier in the pandemic, passed a bill sponsored by Councilmember Rivera that would create personal liability protections for small businesses. And the idea was that if a business can't pay the rent, the owner should be protected from having their personal assets seized. And this was a really important bill. And at the time when we published the report, it hadn't yet been extended. It was set to expire pretty soon. So we were, really glad to see that did get extended. It's actually at this point set to expire at the end of this month. So within the council, there are conversations going on about next steps there. And we're certainly hoping that it gets extended further. Beyond that, hold on, let me just take a quick drink of water. So beyond that, another recommendation we had in the report was focused on restaurants and third-party delivery fees. So earlier in the pandemic, the council capped the fees that restaurants can be responsible for that come from third-party apps. One of the recommendations we made in the report was similar to the personal liability protections that was set to expire. So we recommended, extending those further, and that was something that the council did do. So that's actually been extended until restaurants can operate at maximum indoor capacity, plus an additional 90 days. And then on the state level, a policy that we advocated extending that has thankfully continued to be extended is the commercial eviction moratorium, which is not a long-term solution in the sense that obviously businesses are still incurring massive amounts of debt, but has been a really important short-term lifeline just to give businesses the chance to stay alive until they can reopen. And in terms of what's on the horizon, there are several items that we highlighted in the report that we are still pushing for. One of those is waiving the commercial rent tax on businesses during the pandemic. So businesses south of 96th Street in Manhattan are subject to an additional tax, the commercial rent tax. And that's something that Councilmember Powers has been, vocal about for several years, but has become particularly important in the past year as businesses have been, facing additional challenges with rent. This has just been another burden that they've had to deal with. So we have a bill that would temporarily suspend the commercial rent tax during the COVID state of emergency. And we are pushing to get that bill moved forward, but it has not moved forward just yet. And finally, soon after the report was published, Councilmember Powers and several colleagues in the council and on the state legislative side announced the COVID-19 Small Business Recovery Lease Act. So this is a proposal that would provide small businesses with long-term leases with limited rent increases while offering property owners a tax benefit to offset the loss from making the leases more affordable. And this was trying to respond to kind of the dual challenges that we were hearing from small businesses who were unable to pay rents, and then landlords who, because of the lack of rents, were having trouble paying their taxes. So this plan would essentially provide an incentive to landlords to negotiate leases that would be more affordable for their tenants in the long term, and would really increase the chance that businesses can stay where they are once the eviction moratorium ends. In September of last year, 36 city council members signed a letter of support for this proposal, but because of the complicated state laws around home rule and what's a state jurisdiction and city jurisdiction, the state actually has to pass a law beforehand allowing the city to create a program like this before the city can create a program like this. So right now in the state Senate and state assembly, bills have been introduced that would enable the city to create a program along these lines. So those bills need to move forward and get passed and signed. And then once that happens, the city will be able to take up its own proposal and work out the details of what something like this would look like. So at this point, the big push there is on the state level. And I think those are the main updates, but happy to try to answer any questions that you all have.
Thanks, Sarah. I know there's a lot in that report. There's so much. But you did
Definitely, yeah. I know. Tried to keep it short, but I know it's still
no, it's great.
Pretty robust.
Just as you were talking there about tax incentives and landlords, has there been any talk about giving some of the smaller landlords any tax breaks for concessions that they already gave to their tenants? Like a lot of these landlords have given their tenants break on rent, and but they haven't gotten any breaks as far as property taxes or anything. Is there any talk going around about that?
I haven't heard anything related to concessions that have already been made, or I should say related to steps that landlords have already taken to be flexible with tenants. I think a lot of that would have to happen on the state level. On the city level, we were able to pass legislation last year that I think reduced the interest on, I believe, late property taxes. That's obviously a drop in the bucket for a much bigger problem. And so I think there's, a lot more work to be done there. But no, I'm not aware of anything right now that's being considered on the city or state level that would specifically be focused on, steps landlords have already taken.
Okay. And then just on the cap for third-party delivery services, sorry, what date did you say that's extended until?
So that's extended for the duration of the time when restaurants are operating at any sort of limited capacity, plus an additional 90 days. So if, tomorrow, for example, restaurants were suddenly able to operate at 100% capacity, then it would be 90 days. Since then, it's likely going to be, at least several more months, I would imagine, until it gets to that point. So it's not tied to a specific date, but tied to that, external condition.
Yeah, I wish they would make that permanent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the good thing is that, as a lot of these more creative proposals have been considered during the pandemic, things that people end up really liking, I think there will be pressure to keep them. And I think, hopefully we'll have to keep in mind some of the creative solutions and see what will but will continue to work beyond the pandemic.
Sure. Susan, you had a question?
Well, actually, I wondered if we could put Charlie from Assemblymember Glick's office on the spot and ask him if he knows anything about this bill in the state legislature that needs to be passed to give the city basically home rule. Can I put you on the spot, Charlie?
You can put me on the spot, but I don't necessarily know the answer. This is for, there were two, I think, that were mentioned, that Sarah mentioned. I'm not sure, which are we referring to?
So this, I assume this is the one for we call them recovery leases, giving allowing the city to do a program that would, in exchange for providing long-term affordable leases to tenants, give the landlords a tax break. I think Kavanaugh is the sponsor in the Senate, and Assemblymember New is the sponsor in the Assembly. My understanding is it hasn't had a hearing yet.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not necessarily budget related specifically in terms of we have to pass it so that the budget can get off the ground by the 31st of March, then it's going to be pushed off for a little bit. I know that the governor has a set of, that's a little tenuous at the moment. However, there are a number of things that are being negotiated as part of the recovery plan, in addition to whatever's coming from the feds. So some things are getting swept up into, a larger discussion about next steps. But I will say that if it's being carried by Kavanaugh, so, considering he's the chair, that's a better option, or that sounds better. However, I can't specifically speak to the status of those bills. But what I can do is I can Susan, I'll go back and I'll make a note of it and ask the assembly member and see what she has to say, and I can let you know before we have a district service next week or something.
Okay.
But we can circle back around.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah, of course.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure if I heard you touch base on this, but there's a section of the plan about undocumented workers and giving some financial assistance to them, which I think, it's like the not so secret that there's a lot of undocumented workers in New York City, a lot of them working in construction and hospitality. I know if we're going to be getting, if this whole thing passes the Senate and we're going to be getting some federal money for New York State, can some of that be used for undocumented workers? And then sort of how does that work?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure. I think, I think it would depend probably how the aid is structured. I think from the city perspective, we're a little bit limited in, how that aid could work. But, what we would be calling for would be likely doing it through nonprofit providers that already serve, undocumented immigrants, and providing additional financial support to them, probably through the city budget and additional city funding. I'm not sure though on the federal level what the rules are on that front. That's a good question.
Okay, but it is part of your plan. You guys still are pushing for some sort of more funding to go through those nonprofits to provide sort of direct financial assistance or even food assistance to undocumented.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from our perspective, it was important to make sure that in considering, what small business recovery looks like, that we were, not just thinking about the small business owners, but also thinking about the small business workers. And so, I didn't touch on these as much, in my discussion just now, but we certainly had some points in the plan as well that were more focused on, making sure that workers were protected and getting additional assistance.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from the committee? Let me just see before we go if there's anything else. Right, and the cure periods before the fines, establishing cure periods and reducing fines for small businesses is in there as well.
Yeah, and some other council members recently, last week, I believe, or earlier this week, introduced some bills similar to that, that would aim to kind of reform the fines and fees system. That's been a challenge for businesses. So that's, I think, definitely going to be a point of discussion in the coming months as well.
Yeah, I think something was just recently passed like last week to sort of bring in certain agencies and sort of either reduce the fines or put them on hold, and also give businesses time periods or grace periods to fix the problems before they get fined.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just to my committee members, I think we might want to look at extending that or seeing what they already passed, and if we want that to extend to other city agencies, or we could look into that. Okay, well, thank you guys for coming. We really are, sorry, thank you, Sarah, for coming and for presenting. We really,
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
all right, take care.
Okay, thanks. Take care. Bye.
Do you guys want to, we've got a draft resolution that was that Anisha sent around last night. And I'm not sure if everybody had a moment to read it, but Joe, maybe you can pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, let me.
Or if you make me host, I could do it too. Oh, yeah.
Made you.
Do you want me to do it?
I can do it.
Okay, great.
Open it. Sorry, one sec.
So this resolution was born out of the discussion that we had at last month's meeting. And I took notes on what issues the committee was interested in on small business recovery. And then we went to find some resources of people who are working on those issues. And we found these two plans, Scott Stringer's Save Main Street plan and Councilmember Powers' Open for Business plan. And a lot of those touched base on those. So I basically picked out language mostly from those two plans on the things that we wanted to address, and turned it into a resolution. So let me know if anybody has any questions, comments.
Megan, were we looking to take action on this tonight?
Yes, we could vote on it tonight.
Do we have enough members to vote tonight? Seems we feel thin.
Let me just take a look.
You can vote, and then it would just have to, if there's not a quorum, it would be moved from the floor at the full board.
We do have quorum though. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 out of 11, so we actually do have quorum. Anyway.
So if we think we want to move this tonight, we should probably take a look at each. I looked at this last night, but it would be helpful to see each sort of category one by one.
Okay. So the first part is not really that important, the whereas is, but the first category would be established cure periods before issuing fines. That's something you've heard me talk about before. It's, you know, FDNY, if they come in and they find something wrong, they give you a violation with a 30-day cure period. And if you don't fix it by then, you get a fine. I think most city agencies, unless it poses an imminent public danger, should work under the same guidelines, at least now during the pandemic.
My only comment here would be the list of agencies. It's not comprehensive, right? Is it intended to be comprehensive? Because Department of Buildings can come in and give you a fine as well.
Yeah, the mayor should convene SBS, DCA, Sanitation, Department of Health, and other agencies to establish grace periods.
All right, so the other agencies would cover it then.
Yeah, I think the other agencies would cover it.
If I
Okay.
could say,
DOB, we can just add DOB in there also, because you're right, they're like a major player. Go ahead, Susan.
a number of these agencies already have the ability to do it. They may not be doing it, but they can do it, and they have the ability to do it.
Oh, great.
Because I've seen them, I've seen them do it.
Okay,
You know, so I think, you know, this reso is good because it would, even if they're not doing it, but they have the ability, it would still force them to use that ability.
yeah. The only thing I want to follow up on this is that I know that they literally just voted on something in this regard, and they established grace periods and stuff, but some people didn't think it was comprehensive enough. So I might come back with full board with a little bit of language change if this seems redundant.
We should amend it from the floor if we need to do that.
Okay. If nobody else has any other questions, we can move on to procurement and section. Okay. The procurement section is just, you know, New York City has a lot of buying power, that they can negotiate better prices for certain things, and they should be able to offer those deals to small business owners. I don't know, something as simple as like QuickBooks or Microsoft Office or, you know, things like that.
Megan, use procurement power to provide and services. Is there some other word between provide and?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Thank you. If there's no more questions on that section, we'll move on to cap third-party delivery fees.
My only question, this is just my own personal ignorance, but what does MWBE stand for as an acronym?
That's minority and women
Business enterprise.
enterprises.
Okay.
I keep telling my husband I need another percentage point so that I could be a women-owned business, because we're 50-50.
Yeah,
Right? I was like, what's he gonna do?
51-49. That's
Give me the extra point. See what kind of doors this can open. Third-party delivery fees. I hope everybody knows right now how terrible Seamless and Grubhub are to small businesses. If you could ever just get in touch with a restaurant directly when you're doing takeout or delivery, it saves them an incredible amount of money, because some of them literally can charge up to 30%, which is all of your profit. You know, like you're not making any money on food that you're selling through, getting delivered through Seamless or Grubhub. So during this pandemic, the Hospitality Alliance fought to get those fees lowered, and they just recently extended it. And I think this is asking for another extension on it,
120 days, 4 extra months.
4 extra months. Yeah.
Why, this is just my ignorance and my remembering when you called the restaurant and the restaurant had a delivery person who came on a bicycle or foot and delivered your food.
Right.
Why is that gone? It's like almost 100% gone. I think Westville has their own crew of delivery people. It doesn't seem like any other restaurant has them anymore.
It's one of those things that it was like a disruptor, like a complete disruptor. They came in and they got everyone on board, low prices. You don't have to worry about this anymore.
Liability, any of that stuff.
We'll deliver your food, we'll do this and that. And then when they completely had like every restaurant depended on them, upped their prices.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just, it was like an Amazon, they just changed the game completely of how we do things. All right, so if there's no questions on the cap on the third-party delivery fees, move on to extend commercial tenant eviction moratorium and personal liability legislation. Does anybody have any questions about that? The my only concern here is, like, I know I kind of feel like a broken record, but I am concerned for some of the small landlords that are not getting as much residential rents, and now their commercial tenants are, if they're not paying rent and there's no plan on paying rent, how do they get money? How long is it asking for? An additional, it's so
180 days.
half a year.
But this basically says the landlord can't come after Andrew Comey's personal assets.
That's something different. This is asking for 2 different things. One is Carlina's personal liability thing that she passed, which is fantastic, right? That it basically means, like, if you defaulted on a lease because of COVID, yeah, they can't come after you for, because
They can't come after your house, your car, right, your assets.
Right, because most people have put personal guarantees on leases, so they
right,
can't come after your personal assets, which I think is obviously a great idea. And I do believe that there should be a moratorium on evictions too for a little while longer. I don't know if it should be for a half a year, but it's okay.
No. The eviction moratorium is a year. The local law personal liabilities is 180 days.
Oh, sorry.
That's how I'm reading it.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I mean, that's tough, to your point. I mean, if you're a landlord, Herman's a landlord. There are a lot of landlords too. I'm a residential landlord, and my company is, and it's not being able to take people to court to convince them that they might try to pay their rent, even if they, because none of this stuff is means tested. So you don't have to prove that you were negatively impacted by COVID to not have to pay your rent. Most businesses are, but some businesses, I don't think have been as negatively impacted as others.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of my landlords was saying, like, his attorney, he's got an attorney's office in one of his buildings, and he's like, they're not paying rent. And he's like, what's wrong? You guys are all still working?
Right, exactly,
Like,
exactly.
so not all small businesses are little restaurants and retail.
Right. And some little takeout restaurants are also seemingly, I'm not saying they're at where they were, but they're seemingly doing better than large restaurants that need people to come in and sit down.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I think I'm okay with this, but, and this isn't something for tonight, but I do at one point want to address needs of small landlords. And I say that small landlords because I really do believe there's a big difference between, Steve Cromans of the world and, like I always say, like Mark Millers of the world, who's, third generation Lower East Sider, who's got a ton of rent controlled tenants, and refuses, wants to put the bookshop in there and wants to put the art gallery in there and doesn't want to put a bar. Like, there's a big difference between those guys and the big guys. And I think we need to address it at some point, but not tonight. Okay, extend financial assistance to undocumented New Yorkers. That's just basically saying that they're trying to have the city funnel money through the nonprofits that service those people, so that they could get, food and maybe direct financial assistance because they can't get food stamps or unemployment. Seeing no questions on that, we'll move on to provide tax incentives to support existing businesses and spur entrepreneurship. Just want to give that a quick read and ask me if there's any questions.
The only thing here again is the real property tax. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm reading this right. The commercial rent tax makes perfect sense. And I'm looking at this one to aspiring entrepreneurs. But again, we don't want to necessarily penalize landlords by having them carry a larger share of the real estate tax. Right, because that's how landlords pay a portion of their real estate taxes. They pass a portion of that real estate tax on to their commercial businesses. So it's that last sentence, Megan, I don't.
Business owners located in corridors with vacancies.
I don't know.
Oh, so it's requiring to calculate that share of rent attributable to retail space, that space is leased. So is it requiring the landlord to calculate that share of rent attributable to retail space when the space is leased? I think it's saying they would end up giving the credit in property taxes, which then they would require the landlord to proportionally pass down to the tenant,
Okay,
which is fine by me.
yep,
Parties. And the commercial rent tax, a few years ago, they lowered that threshold. It used to be for anybody who was paying more than $250,000 a year in rent below 96th Street. Which I think like back in the day was like just like the big fancy corporate spots. And then now it's very much like a lot of small businesses were paying that. And then they upped it to, I think, $500,000. So that's been addressed to some degree, but Okay, if there's no more questions on that section, we can move on to reduce the red tape. This to me kind of sounds like a pipe dream, but it sounds really nice. And
Well, didn't they have an office, Megan, that they combine, that you could go to one
they
place?
did. They did,
Is-
and then like they got rid of it. I think it was focused on restaurants specifically. And it was, yeah, it was like a one-stop shop, kind of like an expedited, let's get you open service.
Yeah.
And then it just fizzled away. The program kind of died. I don't know why. I think just change of administration.
I think
it
that was it.
It was before de Blasio's time.
Yeah.
It might be a pipe dream, but that should be something that should be done to streamline businesses, and reduce the amount of cost that you have to pay to not only the expediter, but your lawyer and
Yeah.
the contractor. Everybody has to go to several places, the electrician to a separate place, the heating guy I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I agree. And if it's, and I think they say this here, if it's not a personal, if it's not somebody like assigned to you, it should at least be one website where, all the city agencies that you need to open a specific business are kind of working in conjunction with each other. Okay.
It's a great idea, but the mayor's office the mayor is not going to set up the city's not going to set up a special office under the mayor to do this.
Well, Bloomberg had the hub. It was called the hub. And, you could apply for everything at the hub. So maybe in a year we could do it again.
Yeah, through technology as opposed to an individual person.
Yeah.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with getting the idea out there, right?
No, I agree.
Yes, right. So, okay, moving on. Preserve neighborhood institutions, facilitate small business succession. This was that kind of cool idea we heard about last month, whereas if somebody's going out of business, like, an older business is going out of business, instead of losing that business entirely, sort of trying to facilitate having someone else take over that business and keeping that service in the neighborhood, and also making it easier for that new business owner to sort of get started.
Yep.
Okay. And then, yeah, that's it. And then basically, therefore, be resolved that we ask them to take on those ideas. Oh yeah, my little last bit here, ideas of interest so we had mentioned last month, we wanted to address the women and minority business enterprises. There's not a specific section on that in this resolution, but MWBEs are mentioned in two different sections. So I don't know if there's any specific incentives that we should talk about, but if there are, I think maybe we can bring that to the full board meeting, but they are sort of like sprinkled throughout this resolution. The other thing, the using tracking data, not zip codes, to decipher eligibility for government loans and grants. That's not in here either, but it was in the resolution that we passed last month. Repurposing open streets to have more consistent enforcement.
Megan, I'm sorry, wasn't that though specific to Chinatown?
Well, I think they wanted to just in general not use zip codes for things going forward. Oh, you're saying it
Oh.
was the resolution it's specific to Chinatown?
I thought the resolution was just specific to Chinatown. I don't remember the exact details though.
No, like the wording was kind of like, also in future, we don't want you to use zip code
Okay.
for future, for government grants or loans. But again, like if somebody wanted to write up a couple sentences about that and we felt it was important to be in here, we could get it in there and maybe just add it in as a friendly amendment at full board.
Megan, couldn't we use the language from last month?
Yeah, if we had the,
Yeah.
if we had that it might not be, I thought that the context of that resolution was specific to Chinatown being X'd out of this particular grant pool.
Yeah,
That's
But
why
the language was generic enough that it could
Right.
be
yeah,
put anywhere.
yeah, I think we could use it again for sure. And then
Is there-
open streets, we voted on last week at transportation.
Right.
So that we don't really need to address.
So we can take this stuff on the bottom off.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to just delete that, Joe? Thanks. Okay. All right, well, if, let me just check if there's no other questions, we'll go for a roll call vote on this.
Did you see the one correction on census tracts instead of tracking data?
I know, how do you spell it? Is it,
Census tracts, TRACTS, instead of tracking data.
R-A,
Where is it?
Someone put the correction in the chat. I
Oh,
don't know
sorry.
exactly where it is in the reso.
okay.
Yeah.
Census
Oh.
tracks, yeah, I know, I keep on saying tracking.
They said it was for the item that was deleted.
Oh,
Well,
Okay,
but it's
yeah.
still, I think we still mention it, don't we, or no?
No,
I
we
don't.
don't.
Control
okay.
F for track, so it looks like it's out
Census
of there.
tracks, but we will
Okay.
make note of that spelling correction. Thanks, Dominic. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna go through the roll call vote. So. Sorry, now I have a lot of papers in my hand. Okay, so this is on the vote for the resolution for small business recovery. Anisha Stephen, not here. Megan Joy is a yes. Alistair Economakis. Andrea Gordillo,
Yes.
Herman Hewitt,
Yes.
Joe Kearns,
Yes.
David Louie,
Yes.
Alex Militano, Richard Ropiak. Rich, was that a yes? You were muted. Okay. Rodney Washington, Andrew Comey.
Yes.
Okay, great. Resolution passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Unanimous. Just right. Okay, great. Moving on. Sorry, let me just find. Wasn't planning on chairing this meeting, so just give me a sec. Oh, okay. That's what we just did, was number 4, continued discussion of advocacy for small business recovery plan. That was, Susan, that was what we just did, right? Was there anything?
Right,
specific?
right. That was it.
Okay, that was that. Report from Arts and Culture Subcommittee. Who is given that?
That probably would have been Anisha.
Anisha, and she's not feeling well, so we will. There's nobody else from Arts on here right now, right?
I don't think so.
All right, we're gonna skip that. Bid and cab reports. I don't think there was any,
There might have been a Chinatown bid one.
is there anybody from Chinatown bid on here?
Well, I think David Louis is our rep now. I'm not sure if they had a meeting or not.
Oh, yeah, because I know that the Lower East Side didn't have a recent meet, or had one, I guess, 2 months ago. Nothing major to report there. And then I know
So I think the Chinatown bid had one.
David, are you still on the call?
Muted.
Sorry, guys, give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Okay,
Guess not.
okay. All right, I don't, all right, we're gonna skip that because the only other, the Tech Training Center didn't meet, the Lower East Side didn't meet in the last month. I'm not sure about the Village Alliance. I don't think they met in the last month, and maybe Chinatown, but we could always add that to next month's agenda if there's something to report. Is that okay? Okay,
That's fine with me.
great. Any old business? New business? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
yeah, oh, that's Richard's job, Herman.
Yeah, oh, Richard, this is
Motion to adjourn?
okay, I'll second that.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Helen.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.